Hey everyone, welcome to this video series, Project Management Tutorial for Beginners, designed specifically from an enterprise software implementation perspective. In this series, we'll walk you through the essential practices that are commonly followed across software projects. Let's start with the initiation phase, the foundation on which your entire implementation is built. This is where vision meets structure. You align on business objectives, define the scope from the project team, assess the environment, and formalize a kickoff. This phase sets the tone for everything that follows. Get this right, and the rest becomes significantly smoother. The initiation phase consists of these essential activities: project planning, business case alignment, assembling the project team and communication plan, understanding the existing architecture, finally the kickoff meetings. Each of these ensures your project begins with clarity, stakeholder buy-in, and realistic expectations. Start with knowledge transfer from pre-sales to the delivery team. This includes the scope, environment, client expectations for the key contacts. Understand the why behind the project. What business problems are we solving? Define ROI, time to value, total cost to ownership. And most importantly, align on success. Identify the KPIs that matter to this project. Initiate project planning. Draft the statement of work. This is your contact with the business. Create the project charter, the formal authorization to begin work. List key assumptions, constraints, and risks upfront. And then identify your stakeholders and assess their level of influence and engagement. Now build your team. Define roles across technical, business, and support streams. Set up a governance and establish a RACI who's responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. Develop a communication plan. Include executive dashboards or the status reports. Don't forget training. Ensure the team has certifications of the platform knowledge and other things required for project success. Before you implement anything, understand what's already in place. Review the enterprise architecture, the business process, data models, infrastructure, and applications. Assess security standards, encryption methods, and authentication protocols. The goal is to know what you're integrating with and what could break. Kickoffs are not just formalities, they are your launchpad. The executive kickoff is about alignment. Make sure leadership is informed and bought in. The project team kickoff introduces the team, defines norms, and explains how you'll work together. And then present your delivery methodology, tools, and platforms so that everyone knows what to expect. Let's visualize the entire initiation journey, starting with aligning the business case, creating project charter, identifying stakeholders, defining high-level scope and governance, addressing risks, confirm funding, and transfer knowledge from pre-sales, assess architecture and compliance, define your communication strategy, and complete kickoff meeting. Now you're ready for the planning phase. At the end of initiation, you should have clear deliverables, a statement of work, a signed project charter, a stakeholders list, an initial risk register, assumptions log, a defined governance structure, communication plan, an architecture assessment, kickoff meetings, and aligned KPIs. A few areas are often missed. Compliance. Are you considering regulations like GDPR or HIPAA? Budget. Do you have CapEx versus OpEx clarity? Tooling. Have you selected your tools like Jira or SPM? Stakeholder engagement. Have you mapped influence and interests of the stakeholders? And also change readiness. Is the organization even ready for this transformation? This wraps up the initiation phase. We look into the second phase of project lifecycle, the planning phase. Here we take our strategic goals and translate them into actionable, detailed project plans. We define requirements, design architecture, schedule work, and get our teams aligned, all before starting any line of code. This phase is where success starts to take shape. The planning phase includes these key milestones: conducting collaborative requirement workshops, defining user stories and estimating effort, planning releases and sprints, designing solution architecture and setting up environments, building your data strategy, defining your test approach, and finally, aligning on execution readiness. Each of these is essential to delivering a predictable and high quality implementation. Start by running targeted workshops, one for the platform, one for business process, and one for integrations. Use these sessions to document your as-is, identify gaps, and define your to-be strategy. Also assess what's already available out of the box and what needs custom development. Remember, clarity and traceability now will save time and rework later. And then it's time to capture requirements into actionable high-level user stories. Use the classic format. As a role, I want so-and-so function so that this is the benefit what I can get. Define acceptance criteria and estimate using story points. This is a continuous process which goes on through the refinement sessions during execution phase. Define story states. Set up the Scrum or Kanban board and agree on your team's definition of done. This ensures consistency and quality. As stories are being refined, organize them into epics and also tasks, and build your product backlog. Plan out your release timelines and bucket your stories into sprints as per priorities. Each sprint should be capacity aligned and focus on delivering a working increment. Release planning you do in the planning phase, and when any changes needed, sprint planning goes on from now through the execution phase before start of each sprint. This step transforms your roadmap into real deliverables. Define your architecture early. Set up your architecture runway. Prepare your environments with foundational setups like email connectivity, LDAP, authentication. Document your solution architecture. Finalize your configuration policy and align on your operating model. Enable SSO, multi-factor authentication, to ensure secure access and compliance readiness. Data is critical in any enterprise implementation. Start with a migration assessment. What data needs to move and from where? Build your migration strategy using appropriate ETL tools and define how you'll manage environments. Consider implications on your CMDB and database integrity from day one. Your testing approach should cover everything from unit testing during execution to UAT before go live. Plan for functional, regression, system, or integration testing to have the right quality software. Conduct workshops to align the testing scope with business expectation and technical constraints. The more you test early, the fewer surprises later. Here's a quick look at the planning workflow. You'll begin with requirement workshops, define the as-is and to-be, then refine stories, plan your sprints. Once backlog and velocity are aligned, you define your architecture, environments, map your data, strategy, and finalize your test plan. By the end, you're fully prepared to start execution with confidence. Here's what you should have in hand by the end of the planning phase: a prioritized product backlog, defined sprint plan, documented solution architecture, configured environments, test strategy, a solid data migration plan, definition of ready and done, and all workshop outputs. So without these, you're not ready to execute. Revisit if anything is missing. And then some often overlooked elements can make or break your plan. Which are these? Documented risk or resource management plan, integrated project schedule with dependencies, clear mapping of infra and vendor dependencies, documentation of non-functional requirements like security and performance, and a project wiki or a SharePoint site to organize all your artifacts. This ensures your planning is rightly documented, which can be adapted later as the project and the team understanding evolves. That's a wrap. We'll look into the execution phase, where the actual coding begins, which turn requirements to software product. This is where plans are put into action. Working software is delivered in sprints and quality becomes a shared responsibility. From sprint planning to build, test, readiness for handover. This phase drives progress. The execution phase is where these key activities take place. Sprint planning, retrospectives, designing and developing solutions, executing sprints, preparing for system testing in UAT, and designing the operation support model. Each of these ensures that delivery is structured, iterative, and outcome focused. Agile delivery begins with clear roles and responsibilities. Ensure every team member understands their roles: product owner, scrum master, developer. Plan sprints using a prioritized backlog and commit to achievable outcomes. Use definition of ready and design checklists to validate stories before implementation. Integrate security scans into every sprint build, and each sprint with a retrospective to reflect, adapt, and improve. As we build, every user story must be implemented with traceability to the original requirement. Follow development standards and reusable components to maintain consistency. Each working increment should undergo peer review, unit testing, and functional testing. This is your first line of quality defense. Testing is not a phase. It's a continuous part of development. Incorporate unit and functional testing into the definition of done of every story. Track defects, resolve them early, and maintain high test coverage to reduce risk during later stages. This ensures your solution is not just built, but it's also validated. Quality assurance is everyone's job. Conduct peer reviews to catch issues early. Use checklists to validate compliance and security. Don't overlook non-functional requirements such as performance and scalability. Your code base should always be ready for the next phase: testing, demo, or deployment. Security and compliance must run in parallel with development. Conduct vulnerability assessments and run automated security scans. Review integrations to ensure data protection across systems, and where applicable, run load and performance tests to validate system behavior under pressure. As you approach the end of sprints, start planning for system integration testing in UAT. Ensure all test data, environment, and scripts are ready. Align business users for UAT. Confirm timelines and communicate expectations. Before UAT kickoff, validate that all acceptance criteria are met. Support planning begins in execution, not after go live. Define your hypercare support model and establish roles across L1, L2, and L3 support tiers. Conduct knowledge transfer sessions and draft SOPs for issue handling. Operational readiness is just as important as technical delivery. Let's look at the execution phase flow. Start with sprint planning daily stand-ups, build and test solutions, conduct reviews and retrospectives, run quality and security checks, then prepare for testing and support handover. This cycle keeps delivery agile, traceable, and scalable. Key deliverables from this phase would be working increments of the software, unit functional test results, sprint program traceability reports, QA checklists, peer review logs, security scan reports, and also your draft support model with RACI definitions and escalation paths. If any of these are missing, circle back before moving forward. To strengthen your execution further, you can implement a defect management plan to triage and track issues, change request process to manage evolving scope, live monitoring dashboards for sprint progress, DevOps audit trails for compliance, a technical debt tracker to manage deferred fixes, and an ongoing lessons learned log to fuel improvement. That's a wrap of the execution phase. Stay tuned for the next video where we'll explore delivery phase. Into the delivery phase, the final frontier before closure. This is where testing reaches its peaks, production cutover is managed, users are trained, and the solution transitions from build to live operation. Let's bring it all together. Here are the key milestones in the delivery phase. Deploying the solution to system testing and UAT environments, conducting final rounds of system and user acceptance testing, planning the go-live transition, executing production cutover, and enabling training and user adoption. Each step is crucial for smooth and risk-controlled launch. Firstly, deploy the tested code to your system testing and UAT environments. These are controlled areas where the system is stress tested under real-world scenarios, run regression and integration tests, validate builds with functional teams, and gather inputs from business stakeholders. Everything should be reviewed and validated to support a confident go-live decision. Next comes final validation. Conduct full end-to-end testing to ensure the solution performs as expected from start to finish. Let business users perform UAT. Their feedback is critical for acceptance. Capture sign-offs and consolidate findings in a final test report for executive review and approval. For cutover, start with dry runs. Simulate go-live to catch potential issues. Then move validated code to the production environment. Perform data migration and manual entries if needed. Execute go-live steps. Enforce code freeze, follow checklists, and conduct go-no-go meetings with the leadership. Everything must be deliberate and documented. Training and adoption are critical at this stage. Deliver training using a mix of in-person, on-demand, or hybrid models. Support this with user guides, quick reference cards, and training videos. Embed a change enablement strategy. Communicate clearly, gather feedback, and help users transition confidently into the new system. Every project leaves behind learnings. Document them. Capture what worked, what didn't, and how you'll improve in the next time. Transfer knowledge to L2 and L3 support teams. Update SOPs and document known issues. This step strengthens future support and continuous improvement. Here's the delivery flow in a nutshell. You start with system and UAT deployments, conduct testing, train users and enable support, run your cutover rehearsal, finalize readiness, and finally deploy to production. And then you're ready to close. By the end of delivery phase, you should have a fully tested and validated solution. UAT sign-off from your business users, detailed cutover plan, go-no-go approval documentation, a suite of training materials, and a formal change enablement plan. These artifacts save your audit trail and transition documents. To ensure a successful go-live, don't forget to define a go-live support model with shift coverage. Prepare a communication plan tailored to stakeholders. Create a business continuity or rollback strategy. Validate final security performance benchmarks. Complete knowledge transfer to support teams. Preparedness here is your best safeguard against post-go-live issues. This wraps up the delivery phase where execution ends and value begins. In our final video, we'll walk through the closure phase where we measure impact, close out documentation, and celebrate success. We'll focus on the Closure phase, the critical last step in any software implementation. This is where we formally wrap up the project, measure value, transition ownership, and celebrate success. This is more than just ticking boxes. It's about creating a clean, confident handoff and preserving the knowledge you have built. Key activities in the closure phase include transitioning to support and resolving post-go-live defects, measuring value and project outcomes, conducting a final closure meeting, documenting learnings and archiving assets, and then celebrating the team's success. This phase ensures your projects end with project, admin, and financial etc. closures. Begin by transitioning responsibilities to your L1, L2, and L3 support teams. Make sure SLAs, roles, and escalation paths are clearly defined. Close out hypercare support and verify all critical production defects are resolved. A smooth handover prevents service disruption and builds trust with stakeholders. Now it's time to reflect on impact. Measure how well the project delivered against your original KPIs and success metrics. Calculate ROI, assess user adoption, and capture stakeholder feedback. Celebrate what was achieved and be honest about what wasn't. The project closure meeting is your final governance checkpoint. Summarize the final scope, financials, timelines, and key accomplishments. Review any unresolved risks and discuss how they'll be managed post-project. Share the lessons learned and finalize your support roadmap and formally close the project. Don't underestimate this step, it matters. Recognize your team's contributions. Share a project closure note. Conduct a feedback survey or retrospective and acknowledge key performers. A thoughtful closure reinforces team culture and leaves a lasting positive impression. Let's walk through the closure flow. Transition to support, resolve defects, measure value, conduct the closure meeting, document insights, celebrate and achieve, and finally mark the project as closed. A clean wrap-up means nothing is left behind or left unclear. By the end of this phase, ensure you've completed a support transition plan, final defect logs, a value realization report, the closure report with scope, budget, and learnings, a final executive presentation, archive all the project artifacts, and of course, celebration and recognition notes. These assets provide closure and ensure traceability for future audits or references. To close project like a pro, finalize vendor contracts and secure sign-offs. Implement a document archival plan. Send a customer satisfaction survey or NPS form. Conduct a post-go-live support review. Log any remaining technical debt or deferred scope items. It's the details that elevate a good closure into a great one. Congratulations, you made it through all the 5 years of project management for software enterprise implementations. From initiation to closure, we have covered what it takes to manage successful, scalable delivery. In this series, if this series has helped you, leave a comment, give us a like, and don't forget to subscribe. And remember, the best project managers don't just deliver projects, they deliver value.